Let's talk draft, right? I mean, it was a very exciting couple days for every Jets fan. We knew Zach Wilson, he was going to be the pick at number 2, but we did not know what the Jets' approach would be after that pick at number 2. They trade up, of course, to number 14 with the Vikings, go from 23 to 14, and Elijah Vera Tucker is the other pick they make in the first round this past Thursday. So let's start there, Mike. Your thoughts on Joe Douglas getting the guy he targeted, moving up, paying a premium, but getting a guy that's going to be an instant day one starter on that offensive line right next to Mekhi Becton.
That's an extremely important selection by the Jets and a great move that Joe Douglas made. And I think it was very evident the weeks leading into the draft that if the Jets wanted someone like Elijah Vera Tucker, that they were going to have to trade up. And I know a lot of Jets fans were opposed to that because you wanted to keep as much draft capital as possible. But Elijah Vera Tucker is someone they had in the top 10 on their board. He was an offensive lineman that they wanted desperately. And when you look at the value, they only gave up really a fourth-round pick to make the move. And I'm a firm believer. The Jets have had luck in the past, moving up to 14 and drafting great players like Darrelle Revis. I'm a firm believer that if you identify a player that you love and that you know that this person is going to be a cornerstone player for your franchise, go get him. And the Jets moved up the same amount of spots that the Bears moved up, but they didn't give a 1 and a 4 and a 5. And I know that's not an apples-to-apples comparison because they were going after Justin Fields and quarterback. But you could argue Elijah Vera Tucker is, if things pan out, it's going to be a top 10 player on the Jets and one of the most important players on the Jets. And him lining up next to Mekhi Becton, presumably, for the next 5 to 10 years is going to be very important. And they protected their quarterback, which was extremely, the interest in 23 with the Jets was, if they were going to stay there, was taking Elijah Moore. From everything I heard, this was another player that they rated very highly on their board, and they figured he would be gone by the time they got to 23. And they moved up to 14, got Elijah Vera Tucker. That worked out for them, and then they were more than pleased that Moore was still there at the top of the second round. So the Jets did an excellent job in those first 3 picks and beyond of getting their quarterback help and remodeling and reshaping their offense for the future.
Mike, you make a great point, and you could tell that the Jets were so excited Moore was there with their second-round selection at pick 34, because when the Jets put out the video of Saleh and Douglas on the phone with Moore, they both mentioned how they thought when they made the trade-up, they didn't think a chance in hell that Moore would actually still be there at the beginning of the second round. So definitely Jet fans were excited to see that selection. As far as the Vera Tucker pick, Mike, let's talk more about him as a prospect, because he's going to be a day one starter on that offensive line next to Mekhi Becton. So now, in a perfect world, the Jets have the left side of that offensive line set up for the next decade, potentially. And you just look at what Joe Douglas has done, 2 drafts as a GM, investing in the offensive line in the first round in back-to-back drafts. Let's talk about just the significance and the organizational approach to actually, a novel concept I know, protecting their now young quarterback, Zach Wilson.
Yeah, the last time the Jets were relevant and a significant contender, they had 2 key draft picks, DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold, back in 2006. And the hope is here that Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker form the same duo on that offensive line. And, Vera Tucker is someone that could have positioned himself or played, actually, at tackle for a lot of NFL teams. NFL teams could have drafted him and put him at left tackle. He played that last year. So he has that capability. You don't ever want to see him have to slide outside, but the NFL is what it is with injuries. He has that versatility to do that if you need him. The ideal move is obviously him at left guard, dominating alongside another dominant force in Mekhi Becton. Run left is going to be a familiar phrase that you're going to hear leading into the Jets season, and why wouldn't you do it? And so I'm sure Michael Carter and the Jets backs are going to be very happy when plays are called to that side. And Tucker is another guy with the Jets who's a high-character player. The Jets loved him, and Joe Douglas in the last 2 drafts has made a point to go out and target players who are captains, leaders, and you can only change a culture if you have those type of people in the building. So I think Tucker is going to be a huge asset moving forward for the Jets, more than just on the field.
Mike Mitchell with us here. Once again, you can find Mike on Twitter. Follow him there by Mike Mitchell, Fansided Jets press writer. Spending some time with us here on YouTube talking all things Jets and their draft. Let's talk more, though, about that Elijah Moore selection, Mike. I mean, to me, as a Jet fan, that was my favorite pick of the draft because it once again just showed you Joe Douglas is serious about helping Zach Wilson. Everything they didn't do, the previous regime for Sam Darnold, they're doing the opposite so far for Zach Wilson. And to get a guy like Elijah Moore, who you could argue, maybe the Jets didn't desperately need another wide receiver, but they needed a playmaker. And Elijah Moore could be that guy. I think he's going to be electric in this offense. And now you have Wilson throwing to Moore, Wilson throwing to Crowder, Wilson throwing to Denzel Mims, and you sign Corey Davis. The Jets receiving core, it's not the best, but it's not a disgrace. It's a very respectable group going forward.
Yeah, from 1 through 5, they have a very versatile group. They have, like you mentioned, Mims and Davis on the outside, two big-body receivers who can block and go up and catch the football in contested situations, so that's great. And then Elijah Moore, the more and more you watch, the more you study him. He was one of my favorite receivers in the draft. He's a dominant force in the SEC, had monster games against elite competition like Alabama, and I think he's a complete wide receiver. Even though he's only 5'9", he tracks the ball very well. He's tough. He'll go up and get the football. He's fearless over the middle. He's very smart. He's a terrific route runner. He understands defenses. He understands defensive coverages. He's electric with the ball in his hands. When a lot of these players on the Jets, with their free agent signings and their draft picks, I think of the San Francisco 49ers a lot. So I picture, like with someone like Elijah Moore, because of the new system that's coming in with Mike LaFleur and John Benton, the run game coordinator, the moment they took Elijah Moore, I pictured him in a Niners uniform. I pictured him in that Niners offense, and with the jet sweeps and the bubble screens and the way they use so much motion. And Elijah Moore is so good at those things, and I'm sure the Jets offensive staff, matter of fact, I know the Jets offensive staff targeted him and wanted him desperately, and they were so happy to get him at the he might end up being the Jets' best receiver before it's all said and done. That's how good he is. He's a complete receiver. He has 4.3 speed to get over the top. He can play inside, outside. Obviously, be utilized inside. He's going to be a guy who's going to be lethal in motion. He gets open a lot on that. And it's the smarts and the route running that, and we all saw the video. I'm sure many people saw the video out there. Titans wide receiver A.J. Brown talking about how he feels Elijah Moore is a better receiver than he is. That's quite a compliment for a rookie kid, college kid. He's so polished. I think Moore is going to be a lethal weapon for the Jets. The Jets have lacked dynamic playmakers for a long time. And so Zach's got some people to throw the football to, and he's got some blockers up front to keep him upright so he can get the football to them. So good first phase for the Jets in building a supporting cast around Zach Wilson.
And then Mike, sticking with the theme of the conversation so far, Jets drafting offensive help for Zach Wilson. They used their 4th round pick, and I thought it took a really, really good selection with Michael Carter, the running back out of North Carolina. So when you look at Carter on tape, how do you think he fits the Jets? And do you like the pick in that spot, taking the chance on a running back, not in the 1st or 2nd round, but taking a chance where I believe you're supposed to draft a running back in the 4th round?
I think the Jets got lucky that Carter was still there. The fact that he made it to the 4th round, you're looking at a guy who can step in. And when you look at the draft class as a whole, the Jets might have 5 new starters right out the gate on week 1. And Carter's one of those guys. I understand the Jets are running a plug-and-play system, and they got a lot of different backs who can provide different versatility and value. But Carter has great vision. He's the ideal fit. Of the 2 North Carolina backs, my personal preference was Javonte Williams because I love his running style, how elusive he is, how tough he is. But when you look at it, Michael Carter was a better fit for the Jets' offense. He has more big play potential. He's a better one-cut runner than Javonte Williams is. And I think from day one, he has the potential to be a 3-down back in the offense. And, another big factor with Zach Wilson, and Carter will play into this and Moore will play into this, is you want to get your quarterback easy completions. So when you have a running back out of the backfield that can, that'll help with completion percentage and extending drives, et cetera, et cetera. But you want to make his job as easy as possible. We've already seen on tape that Zach Wilson has the capability of making big plays down the field with accuracy, with all the different ways he throws the football. But Carter and Moore, those 2 guys are going to help Zach Wilson in the early going. He's going through some growing pains, getting used to the NFL, getting him easy completions, extending drives, building confidence, and they're dangerous in the open field. So I think Carter was an excellent pick. The Jets got lucky. At that point in the draft, I was thinking about Carter and Kenneth Gainwell as possible fits in the Jets offense. And when they got to the 4th round, the fact that Carter was still there was they were very fortunate.
You're absolutely right about that. I'm thrilled with the pick as well. And then, you know, after going offense the first 4 picks, Mike, Joe Douglas then goes, all right, let's get some defensive guys on this team. Let's help out Coach Robert Saleh. And you look at what the Jets did. You know, they obviously took some chances on some really good athletes. And I thought the theme with what the Jets did, the back end of the draft going defense, is they took chances on guys that are versatile, that could play safety, that could play linebacker, that could play corner. It seems like the Jets are kind of following the path of like a modern NFL defense, solid system, where you want guys that could do a little bit of everything. Did you get a sense that was the approach the Jets took from the 5th round on?
Absolutely. I think day 3 was the most telling of the Jets draft, of the direction they're headed in and the type of players they're looking at. Gone is the era of the 245, 250-pound linebacker. Jets are transitioning to, I guess, the modern style of defense, if you want to call it that, but it's a style that the Niners, the Seahawks, and all these teams that have played that system. These are the type of linebackers that the Jets are going to have moving forward. And the 2 picks that were very fascinating to me was Hamza Nasruddin and Jamian Sherwood. Those 2 guys have a chance to be starters on this defense, if not by 2021, then 2022. I think Sherwood or Nasruddin could be week 1 starters. We'll see what happens with Cashman, who hasn't been able to stay healthy in his Jets career. But I think day 3 is very telling the type of players. And, you know, I talked about it a little bit before. Joe Douglas has targeted team captains, but he's also leaned heavily on athletic scores and measurements. So we saw that with a lot of their draft picks, like Brandon Eccles and Jason Pinnock and others. Obviously, Marshall, the last pick, is a tremendous athlete for a defensive tackle. So you can see the vision of where the Jets are headed on their roster defensively. And I think day 3 was telling of that. And it's a new era for the Jets defense. Gone is the 3-4. They're going to be playing the 4-3. They want linebackers that can come downhill, cover space. And so I think you saw that with their picks. It was very encouraging to see them identify and target players that are specific fits for what they're looking for.
Mike, out of all the picks the Jets made, which one was your personal favorite?
Personal favorite was Elijah Vera Tucker, because, you know, going into this offseason and last offseason, you know, the Jets have targeted some players on the offensive line, but they haven't put any elite bodies up front. And kind of the hope is that maybe Connor McGovern and George Fant, all these players evolve and play better this coming year with better coaching, different system that maybe is more suitable to their skills. But I think the Jets needed to go out and get an elite offensive line prospect. They need to get better up front. Until they do that, they're not going to win any games. They're not going to be competitive. So they were dead last in so many categories on offense. I know a lot of that has to do with the previous coach. But they needed to get premium talent up front. And they did that with Becton, and they followed that up with Tucker. So, and I'm not, my line of thinking is a year from now, if the Jets draft another offensive lineman, I'll have no problem with it. Don't stop building that. And I know Joe Douglas's background is an offensive lineman, and that's an area that he loves. And you can see how happy he was in the draft room when they got ABT. So that was key to me. I think that you can't just rely upon, you know, Mekhi Becton and a bunch of above average players around him and hope for better results just because of the scheme. You need to have better talent. So I think that was huge for the Jets organization. And, you know, obviously Elijah Moore, it's going to be fun to watch him play. And those guys up front will make it easier for guys like him to get completions and make plays downfield. So the Jets did a very good job with the draft. Right now, the feeling around the Jets is a lot different. I know a lot of NFL fans right now are happy because we made all these additions. But the feeling is a lot different than it was in the past. I mean, results will prove out. But I feel that the Jets are headed in the right direction. And it's because of their front office and Robert Saleh. You can feel, you have a sense, there's a feeling that this team is headed in the right direction, and that's finally going to be relevant again and a contender down the road.
Totally agree with you. And, you know, to your point on next year, of course, still being aggressive and going offensive line again, that's one of the great things about that Jamal Adams trade and about the Sam Darnold trade. What's stopping the Jets a year from now from taking Seattle's pick once again, let's say it's somewhere in the 20s, and doing the exact same thing for whoever the lineman is that they want next year? They have an extra second and a fourth from Seattle, or from, Carolina, because of the Darnold trade. So this is why you make those deals, to get draft capital so you could turn that capital into a great player like Elijah Vera Tucker. So, Mike, it wouldn't shock me at all, right, if the Jets did something similar next year at this time.
Absolutely. And, the key is obviously hitting on these picks. So you hope the Jets are right on the players. Obviously, they're getting rave reviews for their draft class, and rightfully so. But the results will pan out. But like you said, Jake, a year from now, they could be addressing offensive line, and who would begrudge it? You want to make this situation for Zach Wilson where he can't fail. Where, like, even if he turns out to not be as great as people project him to be, that he's got such a good offensive line and such great weapons around him, that's almost impossible for him to suck. So for lack of a better term. And you look at it, no rookie quarterback, Zach's coming into a better situation than Sam Darnold did. And no rookie quarterback had it better than Mark Sanchez did when he came into the National Football League. He inherited a monster offensive line, one of the very best offensive lines with Faneca, Mango, and Dietrich, and Damon Woody. And, the list goes on and on. And then good receivers, a good tight end, Dustin Keller. So they surrounded Sanchez. Now, he had some success there, but obviously never lived up to the billing. But Zach Wilson, it's all about him right now. And this organization is only going to go as far as he progresses as a player. And, he's got to be very good to great in order for this team to become a contender. But let's give him no excuses. That's got to be the mindset of the New York Jets. And, when you look at the Jets' offensive line, Connor McGovern and Alex Lewis and George Fan, quality veterans, but, they could stand to add another one. This draft, they couldn't address everything. I mean, you could have argued the Jets could have went out and got another pass rusher. They could have gotten a tight end, but they couldn't get it done all in one shot. But I could definitely see them continue this trend of every year adding a premium offensive line. Why not?
Thanks for watching the full YouTube video. If you like what you saw, then please subscribe to my page for more content. Thank you.